Most jobs have rules like don't steal or be on time. The night shift at St. Jude's Morgue had different rules. Rule number 1. If you hear knocking from drawer 4, do not answer. Arthur thought it was a hazing prank until the knocking started at 3 a.m. and he reached for the handle. Arthur was 23, a medical school dropout with too much debt and too few options. When the agency offered him the graveyard shift at the city's oldest hospital morgue, he took it without hesitation. $18 an hour just to sit in a cold room and watch over the dead seemed like a fair trade. The morgue was located in the sub-basement, 2 floors below the main hospital. It was a world of stainless steel, fluorescent lights, and the constant rhythmic hum of the refrigeration units. The air always smelled faintly of antiseptic and something sweet, like wilting flowers. His orientation was brief. The day shift attendant, a man named Thomas who looked like he hadn't seen the sun in years, handed him a heavy ring of keys and a battered logbook.
It's quiet tonight. 3 intakes, all elderly. Just keep the temperature at 38 degrees. And read the book.
Arthur took the book. It was an old composition notebook, its cover stained with coffee rings.
Standard procedure manual?
Thomas didn't smile. He looked at the steel wall of body lockers, specifically at locker number 4.
Survival guide. Don't ignore the notes in red ink, kid. They were written by Dr. Eris. He knew this place better than anyone.
With that, Thomas clocked out and practically ran for the elevator. Arthur was alone. He sat at the small metal desk in the intake office. The silence of the morgue was different from other silences. It was heavy, pressurized. He opened the logbook. The first few pages were standard logs, times, names, causes of death. But taped to the inside cover was a list of handwritten instructions in red ink, staring back at him. 1. If you hear a rhythmic rattling from drawer 4, turn on the radio immediately. Do not let the silence linger. 2. If you see a woman crying in the hallway, do not offer her a tissue. Do not speak to her. Lock the office door. 3. Never, under any circumstances, unzip the body bag of a John Doe between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. They are not who they seem. Arthur chuckled, the sound echoing awkwardly in the tiled room.
Okay, hazing the new guy. Very spooky, Thomas.
He leaned back, putting his feet up on the desk. He pulled out his phone and started scrolling. The first 2 hours passed without incident, just the hum of the coolers and the occasional drip of condensation. Around midnight, the air in the room changed. It grew noticeably colder, dropping well below the thermostat setting. Arthur zipped up his jacket. Then he heard it. It was a sharp, metallic sound coming from the wall of lockers, like a latch being tested from the inside. Arthur looked up. The wall of drawers was directly in front of him. They were all closed. The sound came again, louder this time, a distinct, rhythmic rattling. It was coming from the bottom row, drawer number 4. Arthur lowered his phone. He stared at the drawer. It was empty. Thomas had said there were only 3 intakes, and they were in drawers 1, 2, and 3. The rattling became faster, more insistent. It sounded like someone inside was tapping a ring against the metal ceiling of the drawer, demanding to be let out. Arthur stood up, his heart rate spiking. He remembered the rule: turn on the radio immediately. But Arthur was a man of science, a rationalist. He walked around the desk.
Hello? Is there pressure building up in there?
He walked right up to drawer 4. The moment he got close, the rattling stopped instantly, leaving a ringing silence in the room. He reached out his hand to the cold steel handle. He had to know. He pulled the latch. The drawer slid open on smooth, silent rollers. It was empty. Just a cold steel slab. No body, no tools, nothing to make a sound. Arthur let out a breath he didn't know he was holding.
Pipes. It's just the pipes expanding.
He was about to push the drawer back in when he saw it. In the far back corner of the metal tray, illuminated by the harsh fluorescent light, was a single, wet handprint. It was small, like a child's, and the fingers were dragged backward as if something had been pulled deeper into the wall, not trying to get out. Arthur touched the metal. It wasn't just wet. It was slick, with a thick, viscous fluid that smelled of copper and stagnant water. He pulled his hand back, wiping it frantically on his jeans. He slammed the drawer shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the silent room.
Condensation. It's just grease and condensation. Thomas is messing with me.
He retreated to the desk, sitting heavily in the chair. He forced himself to look at his phone, to engage with the normal world. But the signal in the sub-basement was dead. No service. He checked the time, 1:15 a.m. He tried to read the textbook again, but the silence of the morgue had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It felt occupied. The hum of the refrigeration units seemed to drop in pitch, becoming a low, throaty growl. Then, he heard a sound from the hallway outside the office. It was soft at first, a wet, stifled sniffle. Arthur froze. He looked at the open office door, which led to the main corridor connecting the elevators to the autopsy rooms. The sound grew louder. It was unmistakable. A woman was weeping. It was a sound of pure, jagged misery. Arthur stood up instinctively. This was a hospital. Someone must have wandered down from the ER or the waiting room, a grieving relative, lost and confused. He walked to the doorway. Standing in the middle of the long, dim concrete corridor, about 20 feet away, was a figure. It was a woman. She was wearing a thin, white hospital gown that clung to her frame. Her back was to him. Her shoulders shook with violent sobs. Her feet were bare on the dirty concrete floor.
Ma'am, are you okay? You can't be down here.
The woman didn't turn. She just cried harder, the sound echoing off the tile walls. Arthur took a step forward, his hand reaching into his pocket for a tissue. It was basic human decency. Then, his fingers brushed against the rough cover of the logbook he had shoved in his pocket earlier. Rule number 2. If you see a woman crying in the hallway, do not offer her a tissue. Do not speak to her. Lock the office door. Arthur stopped. His foot hovered over the threshold. The woman's sobbing hitched. She spoke, her voice thick and wet, but strangely amplified, as if she were speaking right into his ear.
Please, I'm so cold. I can't find my way back. Help me.
It was a trap. The realization hit Arthur with the force of a physical blow. The voice didn't match the acoustics of the hallway. It was too close, too clear.
I can call a nurse for you. Just stay there.
The woman went rigid. Her sobbing stopped instantly. Slowly, she began to turn around. Arthur didn't wait to see her face. He stepped back into the office and slammed the heavy metal doors shut, throwing the deadbolt. He backed away from the door, his heart hammering. From the other side, there was silence. Then, a soft, wet sound against the metal, like a wet hand hitting the door.
You have a tissue, Arthur. I know you do. Why won't you share?
She knew his name. Arthur stared at the door. The handle jiggled, gently at first, then violently.
Go away! I'm calling security!
Security isn't coming, Arthur. Thomas left early. He always leaves early when the crying starts.
The banging stopped. Arthur waited, listening. He heard the bare feet slapping against the concrete, moving away, but they weren't walking toward the elevators. They were walking toward the autopsy room at the end of the hall, the room where the fresh intakes were kept. Arthur looked at the monitors on his desk. Monitor 2 showed the interior of the autopsy room. It was dark, lit only by the safety lights. On the screen, he saw the door to the autopsy room slowly drift open. A figure in a white gown walked in. She moved with a jerky, unnatural gait. She walked up to one of the occupied gurneys, a body bag labeled Jane Doe. She reached out a hand. Arthur watched, paralyzed, as her fingers curled around the zipper tab. On the grainy black and white screen, the movement was jerky, almost stop motion. She pulled. Arthur expected to see a corpse, a gray, lifeless shell. But the bag was empty. It was filled with a thick, black liquid that spilled over the sides of the gurney, dripping onto the floor. The woman in the gown dipped her hand into the black sludge. She raised her hand to her face and began to paint streaks of the dark fluid down her pale cheeks, like war paint.
What is she doing?
She turned to the camera. The black streaks on her face made her eyes look like hollow sockets. She smiled. It was the same smile Arthur had seen on the mannequins in the storage unit in his nightmares, though he had never had those nightmares. It was a smile of absolute wrongness. She pointed a finger at the digital clock on the autopsy room wall. 2:59 a.m. She turned her attention to the second gurney, the one labeled John Doe. Rule number 3 screamed in Arthur's mind. Never, under any circumstances, unzip the body bag of a John Doe between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. The woman began to walk toward the John Doe bag. Her gait changed. She wasn't shambling anymore. She was prowling. Arthur slammed his hand on the intercom button that connected the office to the autopsy room.
Stop! Don't touch that bag! Get away from it!
The woman didn't stop. She didn't even flinch. She reached the gurney just as the clock on the wall flickered. 3 a.m. She grabbed the zipper.
No!
She ripped the zipper down in one violent motion. The monitor screen went white. Not static, just pure, blinding white light, as if the camera lens had been exposed to a nuclear flash. Then, the monitor exploded. Glass shards sprayed across the desk. Arthur threw his arms up to shield his face. Sparks rained down onto the linoleum. He sat there, panting, his ears ringing. The office was plunged into semi-darkness, lit only by the emergency red bulb above the door and the flickering sparks from the ruined monitor. Then, he heard it. It came from the wall of drawers, directly in front of him. Drawer number 4. It wasn't a polite tapping anymore. It was a violent, thrashing sound, as if something large and powerful was throwing itself against the steel from the inside. The metal door of the locker bulged outward with each impact. Arthur scrambled backward, his chair tipping over. He hit the back wall. Rule number 1, turn on the radio immediately. He lunged for the small AM/FM radio sitting on the filing cabinet. His fingers fumbled with the dial. He spun the volume knob to max.
Come on, work!
Static blasted from the speakers, harsh white noise. But the banging from drawer 4 didn't stop. It got louder. The steel latch was beginning to bend. Then, a voice cut through the static on the radio. It wasn't music. It wasn't a DJ. It was a calm, deep, authoritative male voice.
It is too late for music, Arthur. You let her open the bag.
Arthur stared at the radio.
Dr. Eris?
I told you they are not who they seem. the John Does. They are the doorways, and you just let the guest in.
The banging on drawer 4 stopped abruptly. Silence. Then, the latch on drawer 4 slowly, smoothly turned. The drawer slid open. Mist rolled out, curling along the floor, and from the darkness of the open drawer, a pair of long gray legs swung out. The figure that stood up was too tall for the room. It had to hunch its shoulders to avoid the ceiling tiles. Its skin was the color of old slate, wet and slick. It wore the tattered remains of a hospital gown, but it had no face. Where eyes and a mouth should have been, there was only smooth, gray flesh. Arthur backed into the filing cabinets. He couldn't breathe. The air in the room had turned into a vacuum, sucking the heat right out of his lungs. The radio static screamed. Then Dr. Eris spoke one last time.
The curator has arrived. You are relieved of duty, Arthur.
No, please, I didn't know.
The woman from the hallway, the guest, appeared in the doorway. She wasn't crying anymore. She was smiling, that terrible, wide smile, her face streaked with the black fluid from the body bag. She walked to the faceless man and took his hand. They turned to Arthur. Arthur grabbed the keys from the desk. He tried to run for the door, dodging past the desk, but the woman moved with impossible speed. She blocked the exit, her body rigid, her smile stretching wider than humanly possible.
No leaving. The shift isn't over. We need a new vessel.
The faceless man reached out. His hand was enormous. He didn't grab Arthur. He simply touched Arthur's forehead with one long, gray finger. The cold was instant. It wasn't just freezing, it was the absolute cessation of heat. Arthur's vision went white. He felt his knees hit the floor. He felt his heart slow down and stop. The morning sun hit the loading dock of St. Jude's at 7 a.m. Thomas, the day shift attendant, walked in, whistling. He unlocked the office door. The office was empty. The chair was knocked over. The radio was buzzing with soft, normal static.
Arthur? Kid? You in here?
Thomas frowned. He checked the logbook on the desk. The last entry was time-stamped 3:03 a.m. It was written in shaky, red ink.
Processed. Drawer 4.
Thomas sighed, a look of tired resignation crossing his face. He grabbed his keys and walked to the wall of lockers. He walked to drawer number 4. He hesitated, looking at the handle.
Damn it, Arthur. You didn't read the rules.
He pulled the drawer open. Lying on the cold steel slab, curled into a fetal position, was Arthur. His skin was gray. His eyes were wide open, frozen in a scream that would never be heard. And painted on his forehead in thick black fluid was a single number. 5. Thomas shook his head. He pushed the drawer back in and latched it tight. He walked back to the desk, opened the logbook, and picked up a red pen. He wrote a new rule at the bottom of the list.
Rule number 4. Do not open drawer 4, especially if you hear Arthur screaming.
He closed the book and poured himself a coffee.